Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop SIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop SIS. Hey, you guys. Big welcome back to Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I'm here with co-host Rachel Timothy. First of all, Merry Christmas. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and whatever you did this weekend, we hope you felt loved and supported and, had some fun, had some laughs, played some games, ate some good food. Who knows? We know this time of year is not always as easy as the Hallmark movies make it sound. And so we want to support you wherever you're at this holiday season. Today's topic is, I think this is a fascinating one. And I think that what we're going to talk about today is truly the goal and the gift of healing. Today, we're going to share a bit about the 4 color personality types. Now, there's a plethora of tests, right? Like that you can take, the Myers-Briggs, and I'm actually learning one called the 5 Voices that talks about your innate voice and what your gift is and things. And so there's a lot of different, there's the DISC, D-I-S-C, there's the DISC. There's a lot of other like personality type profiles out there. And basically what they do is they help you hone in on your innate giftings. Strength Finders is another one. The Colby is another one. And so I'm going to share the 4 the 4 colors, because that's what I know best. But you guys listening, if you've done these types of personality type tests in the past, I'm sure you'll be able to connect it to what you know best. And then, Rachel, we're going to talk a bit about how trauma kind of takes your color away. Mm-hmm. It takes away that joy, that desire, because you're in survival mode. Mm-hmm. And then one goal of the healing journey is to get your color back. And it's really stinking cool when that happens. So anyway. I'm going to start by sharing the 4 personality colors, but before I do, is there anything you want to add about this topic?
Well, the first time that I heard about it was up at your place, and it was actually kind of a fun thing to do. If you have not already had your Christmas gathering, you guys should pull out the color personality test and see who everybody is. You can kind of pick too. Like I could have guessed your color once I learned what they are. So it's kind of fun.
It is fun. And so I'll put the link to the quiz. It's a free quiz that can give you kind of an, your leaning. Now we all have all 4 colors. I think that's, we're not all or nothing people. So we often will have a primary color and a secondary color. And so I'll talk a bit about mine, but the 4 colors in general terms, we have red. Red type personalities are goal getters. They are, they're focused, they're competitive. They're kind of like, what do I need to do? And they go do it without asking any questions. If you were to ask a red personality to build a bridge, they would be already doing it. Yeah. They're finishers. They've got that grit to them. They're like doers, right? Mm-hmm. And most of I would say like 3% of people are actually primary red. They do like numbers, but really they like their stats, and they keep track of their stats. They're not necessarily detailed people, but they want to know where they stack up. So they'll keep track of their stats and have goals to like get better and that kind of thing.
I picture like, have you ever gone to like a church potluck or something, and you have all those people who are like, okay, let me go ahead and do this. Let me do those dishes up. Let me put, and I'm in the back going, I don't want to get in anybody's way. Do I help? But the people just up and just helping. I love that. And I love watching them work. But that's the red.
Yeah, they're action takers. They don't
Yes.
ask any questions. They just
Oh,
do.
you need those people in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. The second or a second type of personality is the yellow personality. The yellow personality is the helper. So they're also service oriented. They want to serve, they're helping, but they're really more concerned about you. You know, they aren't concerned about them winning or having the glory. They're concerned about you. And so 40% of people are yellow. These are teachers, daycare workers, nurses. They're people in the helping professions. They want to give love, and they are warm and friendly. And so typically a yellow personality is like a great person to have at the front desk, because they're going to welcome everybody and they just want everyone to feel included and that kind of thing. So somebody, if you were to ask a yellow to build a bridge, they would say, who is this going to help?
Oh.
Like, I am the yellow will take action if they know the purpose.
And I'd say too, like, give me instruction and I can follow it. Like that too is, if I understand what I'm supposed to do, I can do it. Whereas the red just takes off
They kind of
gets,
blaze their own trail.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The yellow is like, they're purpose driven. So they aren't just going to do stuff to do stuff, but they will do hard things when they know the heart behind it.
I like that.
The third personality type is blue, and they are like extroverts, life of the party. They don't want to do it unless it's fun. You know, so in business building, they would be somebody who shows up to all the meetings, but when you're like, are you working your business? They'd go, what? I'm not actually doing the hard thing. I just love to hang out with people and I want to have fun. And so they often would gauge how they're spending their time on, is this fun? If this is fun, I'll do it. If it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. And so if they are going to build a bridge, they would say, who's going to be there? Who's building the bridge to? Like the community of building the bridge together is what gets them interested and excited. And so they're more extroverted. They would, you know, they're really good at planning events. They're really good at attending events. They bring their like the life of the party. So they're somebody who says yes. They're like FOMO people, you know, FOMO, fear of missing out. Like they do not want to miss out. So they are all in on any, experience. And they're probably elevating it because they're like, oh, we're going to hang out for Christmas. Let's do an elephant exchange. Let's all bring different dips and like rate them. Let's bring cheese. Like they're like thinking of things to make it better.
Yeah.
So they're like a community organizer, and they're sometimes the glue of an organization or of a family because they like love getting together.
And I love blues because I'm back sitting there being awkward and not sure what to say. And they're just, let's play this game or let's do that.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Yeah, exactly. And so the fourth personality type is green. Now, greens are the ones that I like, I do not relate with the most, I would say. They're very detailed. So greens are really special because once they say yes, they're all in, because they've done so much homework to get there. You know, they have done their research. They look everything up. They're the ones who read policies and procedures. They're the ones who notice spelling errors, and, they're detailed. They're detailed. And so they may be slow to act because they're reading and researching, but once they say yes, once they commit, they're all in. So you want a little bit of everybody in our community, right? And if we were to ask a green to build a bridge, they would say, how long is the bridge? What
Mm.
type of wood are we using?
Yes.
Like they would be the ones that you want to be in charge of something like that because they are the ones making sure that it's actually going to be effective.
Yep. And you can't build a bridge without them.
Exactly. Exactly. So I would say that when I've taken these, these tests over the years, I'm a yellow red. So I got into the field of psychology because I had a heart for people, but I also love goal setting and I have a very low boredom tolerance, meaning if I'm bored, I'm like, this is dumb, and I find a new goal. Maybe the goal is to like read a book a month or to run a half marathon or to sign up new clients or to get on a few more podcasts. Like it doesn't always have to be huge grandiose goals, but if I don't like the restless feeling, and so I will immediately like try to find another goal. And being a business owner over the past 15 years, that has given me a reason to set small goals, because in my corporate job as a clinical psychologist, there was no ladder to climb. I could be doing the best job ever and it would mean nothing. Like I'm not getting a raise, I'm not getting a promotion. My job is the same for years and years and years and years. And so being an entrepreneur gave me a way for that red to start coming out, where I got to be competitive with myself, where I got to set a goal and then hit it and repeat that process over and over again.
So could you see both of those colors then when you were a kid as well, or is that something that develops over time?
I think when I look back, I definitely noticed times when I would agree, like it hasn't changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was a sports girl, so I loved sports. I loved winning. I loved that competitive spirit, which we just don't have a chance to get out as adults, you know? Like even when we play like church softball, like we don't really get a chance to be competitive. So the entrepreneurial space has given me that roadmap.
Or
But
people look at you weird when you do try to make church
you
softball really
break your
competitive.
leg and it's
Yep.
but then even with a yellow personality, I was always interested in volunteering at church. I was always interested in, now there's pros and cons to all of them, right? So like the red personality, they're goal focused, but they can run you over if you're not careful. If they're not careful, if you're in their way when they're trying to hit a goal, you're a casualty. Like they're not asking you questions. They're just like, excuse me, move. So there's pros and cons of both. The pros and cons of yellow, of course, is they are loving and engaging and supportive, but they also can be people pleasers. And they don't necessarily know what they want because they're too busy trying to assess what you want. They can overcommit and then they're burnt out and then they're mad, So again, pros and cons. The pro and con of a blue is they could be really busy going nowhere.
Mm.
They like say yes to everything, but it's not actually taking them anywhere.
Right.
And then the green is that they could annoy you to death with questions.
Or miss out on the joy maybe of the
Yeah.
experience because they're so focused on the numbers and the detail.
Yeah, they maybe are slow to take action and they could be missing out on some fun stuff because they're doing research or they're just like staying back and watching and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you think of those 4 personality colors and you think of elementary school Rachel, what do you feel like you leaned towards as a kid?
I was definitely red yellow. I was one competitive stinker. And my competitiveness came before friends at that time. I remember playing my friends in basketball and lovingly destroying them on the court. But that was my personality. I was very much a go-getter. I had goals and I was so dang focused on them. But if I saw somebody hurting, that, like, I took care of them. You know, I wanted to help fix that. So I definitely see a red, yellow.
Yeah.
In that order, probably too.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I think that so we'll talk about what I've seen over the past couple of years, but we would say, and when we started talking about this that night at my house, we all took the test and we were talking about what our primary is and what our secondary is, and how our natural instincts can be kind of laid dormant until they're revived. And trauma is one way that those natural giftings can be pushed aside because you're in survival mode. So you made the point of, you know what, trauma took my color away.
Right.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So first of all, I remember sitting there on your couch and like we had the test on the phone. And I remember anxiety in my heart because I didn't know the answer to the questions. And the questions were simply how I feel about things. And I didn't know the answers. And so I was trying to act like I knew the answers as best I could, but really deep down, it was just eye-opening for me because a lot of the questions, either I couldn't even compute them in my mind, like people ask themselves these things, or I had absolutely no idea what I felt. Or my first instinct of how I wanted to answer it, I knew wasn't how I felt, but what had been placed on me in the past. And so I took the test and I came out a very, very strong yellow. In fact, I think red was probably number 4 on my list. Like it was way down there. Even though when I heard you describe yellow or describe red, there was something in me that was like, oh yeah. But yet when I took the test, it was nowhere in there. And so, once you hear yellow's people pleaser, how do I make everybody happy? How do I make the situation just calm and peaceful? I'm like, yeah, well, that's who I am in many, many ways. And I went to bed that night and I got to thinking about it. And it was like, yeah, so my personality, who I am was stolen because they were using me for evil things that just made it to where my world was survival mode 24/7. And I lost who I was. I didn't know who I was anymore. And even though the trauma from my childhood was over, I still didn't know who I was. I was still black and white. So,
Well, and I remember I don't remember why we had this conversation because I don't know if I really asked you what your favorite color was. Did I? Or would you just?
I think there was something else you were asking me, and I'm like, Denise, I don't even know my favorite color. Like, I cannot answer this question.
Right. Okay. I was like, I don't think I asked you that question, but it came up somehow.
Yes.
But you're right. I think that, I mean, when we first started talking, it was like, I am trying to get through the day. I do not even know.
Mhm.
So tell us a bit about how you have been on this kind of rediscover journey over these past 2 years to light that spark again, figure out who you are, what you like, what brings you joy,
Yeah.
and get
So
that color back.
I think I didn't realize that that's what I was doing necessarily, but what I found was when I stopped numbing the pain and living, because when you numb the pain, you numb everything else in your life too. You numb your personality, you numb, what you enjoy or don't enjoy. You numb everything when you numb out. And when I stopped doing that, it was painful, but I started to see pieces of myself come back to life in the midst of that pain. And I started to I even started to see the world in just brighter colors and less of a chaotic is everything safe mode, but in that tree is beautiful, not looking around to see if the world is safe, but seeing that tree is beautiful. And so, yeah, just being able to step outside of the coping skills that had kept me captive for so long, that came as a result of the trauma, and starting to rediscover who I am. Taking your 90-day U-turn was huge in that because you talked about this one word called dream. And when you're in survival mode, you don't dream. You don't know how you feel in the moment, let alone what you're going to do tomorrow or 10 years from now. And so when I started to dream and I started to see what gave me butterflies in my stomach when I thought about doing it, it was like that color started to take over a little bit. And you would give us like these goals to accomplish, and red started to come out a little bit more. And I felt this nudge in me that I could do this or I could do that, and I'm going to make sure I do this or I do that. And more red started to pop out, and I'm still very much yellow, but there's almost just as much red now.
One of the questions we ask in 90-day U-turn is there's two questions that I want to ask you. The first one is I have everybody list their strengths, the things that they're good at. They're, you know, like, are you good at cooking? Are you honest? Are you friendly? Are you, you know, do you like to knit? You know, that kind of thing. So one is like your innate strengths. How was that for you to fill out?
My guess is I skipped it.
Probably.
Yes. Because
Now, one of the questions is to also ask 20 people. And I say 20 because I know it's a stretch and at least you'll do 5, right? What they see in you. Did you do that exercise?
I did do that exercise.
Okay, tell me about that. How was that one?
I remember what they saw in me was a lot of yellow that I was carrying. Didn't think about myself, but others. And yeah, so I mean, a lot of their words were yellow.
And then another exercise that I have people do is write down what brings them joy. You know, the things that make you feel more connected, the things that make you feel alive, whether it's journaling or going for a walk or going camping or getting a massage or whatever. What are some of the things you discovered when you did that exercise?
Well, one thing that I discovered while doing all that was I love just being still. It sounds really old ladyish, but used to I couldn't. Like I couldn't be still in my thoughts. And I couldn't be still with like the shame that I felt, the guilt, the all of it. Like I hated to be still in my thoughts. And now I absolutely love that time. So that was one thing that I recognized I enjoyed. But doing things with my kids and going out and playing basketball, doing some of the things that I enjoyed as a kid with them, things that I thought that I would be doing all the time as a parent back when I was dreaming about having kids. But I haven't done because I was in survival mode still. So things like that definitely were on my list.
Yeah. And I think that what's so cool about these exercises is that it's not rocket science, you guys. Like, we're not saying like, oh my gosh, I have this new thing that I've never thought about. Like, but what it does is it gives you the space for those dreams to bubble up, for those desires to bubble up. Like, oh, yeah, like we could shoot around outside. That would be fun. Or we could play pig or lightning or around the world, or we could go for a park or go to a park and play. Like, and then we get to put that on our calendar and be intentional about it.
Yep.
And that's when things really start to change.
Yeah. And so it's starting on the outside, I guess, first, and then it changes you within. No?
I don't know. Yeah, let's think about that, because usually we'd say the opposite, right? But I do think that, well, I think in this case, if you're doing things that bring you joy on a consistent basis, you will feel more joy. So you don't need to wait to feel joy before you do those things. You start taking action first and your emotions will follow. So in this case, I would absolutely say your emotions will follow the actions because you're putting more of what you really innately connect with on your calendar.
Yeah. I think so often trauma survivors have a tendency to look at somebody else and try to mimic what the other person is saying or doing. And I have found that when I first started doing your 90-day U-turn, you had a question on there about we had to rate where we were at in each area of our life. But I don't know if you remember this or not. In the video, you said most people will rate it a 4. Well, so I rated everything a 4. And then, no, seriously. And so then we get to the actual meeting and we're talking to somebody and they didn't rate theirs a 4. And I'm like, really? Like, you're an 8? Is that okay to say? Because we're supposed to be a 4. That was literally how my brain worked with that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So, but I think when you're in survival mode, that would be when you're more of kind of like the follower mode.
you're trying to fit in and not be recognized.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to be a part of the herd.
Mhm.
And so you're in follower mode. And once you're not necessarily living in fight or flight anymore, then you can really ask yourself, what is it that I really want?
Right. I wonder too if there's people out there, like for me, my dreams and my goals were used in the grooming process. And I wonder if there's others out there where that deterred you from doing what your soul really wanted to do because the perpetrator took that as a way to get to your heart and twisted it and then almost tainted that desire within you, that color.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could be connected to that bad memory.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe, you were a red and comments made by people around you, emotional abuse, whatever it may be that you were going through can taint that color and slowly but surely take it away.
Well, especially if you're living with toxic people, they're going to take whatever your personality style and they're going to see the bad part of it. The blues are too loud and the greens are too quiet and the yellows are the people pleasers and the reds are too bossy, So if you're in a toxic environment, no matter who you are, what you do, whatever personality you have, that toxic person is going to pull out the negative side of whatever personality trait it is. And that doesn't mean anything about you at all. It really is a reflection of the toxic person.
Yeah, I think you see that sadly in parents a lot. Like they're trying to change the color of their child because it's just not comfortable for them to be around a blue or around a red. Yellow is easiest probably to parent.
Yeah, and they don't quite jive or they don't understand each other. I mean, it also reminds me of the love languages a bit. And if you aren't speaking the same language, it can feel like you're off.
Yes. Well, see, my husband, I would say, is blue in many ways, very extroverted, and I'm very introverted. And so when we are out and about, he loves to do things to embarrass the crap out of me because, that brings him joy. But at least I know that he is a blue and I'm a yellow and this is our world.
Yes, exactly. Understanding each other can bring what's the word? It's like understanding. You don't have to take things personally. You don't have, you're just like, oh, that's just the way he's such a goofball. That's his blue coming out.
Yes, and then seeing the good in all of the colors as well. Like this world will not go round without 4 colors.
Yeah. So one way that we can recognize our own color is asking ourselves about the strengths and about the joys, asking other people to say what they see in you, because oftentimes they see us 3 steps ahead of where we see ourselves. But then we can also use this to really start to pull out the best in the people around us. So our kids, what color do they naturally gravitate to? Are they, are they the helper personality, or are they the detailed person, or are they the life of the party, or are they really goal focused? And of course, kids change so much. You never, you're not locking them in, but it is interesting to keep your eyes open and see if there's a way that you can love on that piece of them and honor it rather than calling out that negative side.
For sure. And then what's your thoughts on cultivating other colors in your child's life or in your own life?
I would say you want to stick with the joys and outsource the rest.
Okay.
So there was a season in my business where I was like, I am going to try to be more boisterous. I'm going to try to like own the room when I come in. And it was so unnatural. So like, can I have good eye contact and can I ask good questions? Yes. But to like try to be more blue just didn't work for me. What I learned is to really honor my natural state, like my natural instincts. And then if there's a piece that I'm not that good at, but I need in my life, then I can get help.
That makes sense.
So now I have a virtual assistant who does all the detail work.
Who's the green?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes, because it was like I could spend all this time doing something I hate, which does not bring me joy and, it grinds me, or I could find someone who loves that stuff.
So instead of focusing on the other colors, you're making your colors brighter.
Yes. Yep.
And you need to be around people that also help make your colors brighter, not that pull your color out of it, like dull your color.
Yeah. Yeah, we want bright crowns.
Crowns. Yes, crowns.
Crayons, guys, crayons.
Okay, we need a poll. How do you say crowns?
Crayons. Colored pencils. We'll just say that.
Yeah, forget crowns.
Yeah, markers. But you're right. I think that's the thing is we don't need to spend a ton of time. Once we know, I think the discovery process is fascinating. And you might try stuff on, like, let's try it, see how it goes. Nope, hate it. Okay, let's go back into my lane. But we call it staying in your lane. If you think of the Olympics, like the swimmers, they are doing what they do every single day. They have their eyes straight. They're swimming in their lane. They're doing their thing. They've practiced this a million times. Hours and hours a day, they do this. And those who look left and those who look right are the ones who slow down and lose. The ones who win just stay in their lane and keep their eyes focused forward. And so I think with us, once we know kind of our gifts, we can really hone into that and then either and get help with some of the rest.
Yeah, I like that. It's so weird. You're mentioning that, and I'm picturing in my head this Olympic pool room. And I see the yellows sitting up in the crowd cheering them on. I see the reds in the pool. I see the greens as the the scorekeepers.
Yeah.
And then I see who would be a blue? The coach? I don't know.
Yeah, the blues would be like the ones who brought the food for afterwards.
There you go. The party, the after party.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
exactly.
the tailgaters.
Yeah, they totally are. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I think understand, like, number one, noticing that you're dull, or that you don't know, noticing that, and then getting into a place of discovery and curiosity. Like, what do I really like? What does come naturally to me? Now, one thing you mentioned is that you numbed, and I'd like to hear what that means. How does somebody know they're numbing? Because my guess is they are just trying to survive and they don't quite even know that that's what they're doing.
Well, part of it, I think, was I just need to get through the day. Just need to get to the end of the day. If I could just get to the end of the day and get in bed, then maybe I can take a deep breath. But I think when you have color, you want to be in the day. You want to experience the day and let your colors out in many different areas. But when you're numbing, you're just trying to get the day to go away. And so if that's your attitude in some way, then that's a sign of numbing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I started seeing your color come out, which was so fun. And so one of the ways I saw Rachel's red start to come out is she would be like, so should we do this for Stop SIS now? So should we do this? And I'm a little nervous because, this is a big adventure we're taking on. And I started, and that's just part of, yes, oh gosh, I'm scared. Like, that's how it goes. And so I was in the like, oh gosh, I'm scared mode. And she was like, all right, here's what we got to do. Let's do this. Let's do that. Here's what, and I thought, okay, I did more than I would have on my own
Really?
because Rachel was like, all right, let's do this. Let's go do this. What do you think about that? How do you about this? And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Now, I have a feeling I said it in a question form though, because that's how I don't say, hey, let's do this typically, but I'll say,
Yeah.
what do you think about?
Yeah. That's exactly how it was. What do you
Yeah.
think about starting an Instagram? What do you think about this? What do you think? Okay, yep, here we go. And so, but for me, number one, it helped to drive me. Like it was like it um helped me to get kind of out of any fear mode. Um, but I saw you start thinking 3 steps ahead as well.
Hmm.
And I saw you start to go, all right, here's what we need. What do we need to do to get there? And like you started to set those small goals and put actions on your calendar. And then we divvy up activities and then you would do them and come back and be like, all right, I did this. What's next? And you're, you know what I mean? And so I think for me, that's how I started noticing like, ooh, she's got some red. Like
Yeah,
she likes to get things done.
that is true, man. And then if you think back, I can still picture myself talking to you those first few times. And I mean, there was just nothing. There was nothing in the conversation that had any red whatsoever. I just wanted to survive.
You were a bit gray.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think speaking also gave you some color. What do you think?
It gave me it brightened my yellow maybe because that purpose behind it really and the way that I saw it impact others, the way that I saw God like impacting others through my story was really exciting for me. And so when you think of it, of like going back to when I was a kid and when I was first groomed and some of those colors were slowly taken away and maybe given a bad name or a bad taste or whatever, um, now I'm experiencing reward for having those colors. I'm experiencing, these beautiful moments, and it just makes you want to come back to life.
Yeah. Yeah, it really helped connect with purpose
Mhm.
and gave you a voice and feedback.
Yeah.
I think feedback is underrated, but giving like you could write your book in isolation and if you never hear feedback, you don't know how it's impacting people. So getting to have that live feedback of people asking questions and digging deep and coming up to you and saying, I've had similar things and that kind of stuff really gave you that immediate gratification of this is worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I also feel like both you and Granny have challenged me with certain things that have helped bring about more color. Things that I would have been okay with where I was. Um, Now I'm pushing myself for more. So like, one example is I had sent Granny a picture of me when I was speaking and she was real nice and everything about it. But then a week later, she's like, okay, so you're not going to wear tennis shoes when you speak anymore. Like it's time to stop dressing like a victim and start dressing like a survivor.
And I remember
And
that.
I was like, oh, that's outside my comfort zone. I don't know what color that is, but it's not my color. And but I had never taken joy or even, I mean, I wanted to be a part of the herd. I wanted to fit in. Um, and now I am trying out new things. I've tried to learn how to curl my hair, which has been, I've sent Denise some pictures that I went out and bought curlers, and every time I put them in, my dog barks at me because he doesn't know what is sticking outside my head. But just I can feel my color coming back with stretching myself in those ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And taking care of yourself, being mindful of just taking care of yourself. It's not necessarily about even fashionable. It's like, let's just not
Yes.
look from being homeless.
No, it's
And
really not about being fashionable at all. It's about expressing now what's on the inside, which is growth and happiness and, adventure instead of, I don't know, it just goes hand in hand, what's on the outside and the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And, again, it's like one of those conversations, what comes first? Um, if you're taking care of yourself on the outside, the goal is that it would then match on the inside as well. Now, I know you did some personality type stuff at Selah. Do you want to share a bit about what you
Oh,
discovered then?
it was so interesting because like it was a long test and it had like numbers and letters and all these different things that your end result. And I can't remember the name of it, but I'll never forget. I did the test to the best of my ability, and they had to go and print off the papers to see what our scores were or whatever. And when they came and they handed me the paper, I looked at it and I said, "This, you got the wrong person. Like, this one's not mine." I legit did not think it was mine because it was talking about being this extroverted, adventurous person. And I'm like, that's not me. And they said, "No, that's your paper. Inside, that is you." And so then I started reading through the questions again. I'm like, maybe I didn't answer it right. Maybe I did this wrong. But the more I thought about it, that used to be me. Um, Man, I was one spunky kid. And oftentimes I'll see it in my kids now. Like I'll see that spunk and I'll think, oh, I did used to be like that, didn't I? And then life happened. Um, I will share this too. I recently shared a reel on Instagram, and I was talking about my inner child a little bit and just the struggles of this time of year and where I was at with all of it. And somebody gave this really great idea. They said, when I want to connect with my inner child, and I'm, like they have 6-year-old twins, I guess. She says, I'll go back to my 5-year-old self because that's when her abuse started. And I will play with my 6-year-olds as if I'm 5. And she'll get on the floor and we'll goof off. And that's her way of giving her 5-year-old a chance to be a kid. And I was like, dang, I never thought of that. But I mean, I've heard stories of girls who were trafficked and they're in these safe houses. And when they ask, like you go to these safe houses, what are your needs? And they'll say crowns, colors, toys. Yes, crayons, sorry, toys, puzzles, because these kids lost their childhood and they need to relive that. They need to go through their childhood still. And so they play. They literally get down and play with these grown women. And because that kind of ignites that inner child and ignites those colors again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Especially this time of year, it's a great excuse to just get out and play, be a kid, allow yourself to laugh, and and see what bubbles up when you do that.
Mm-hmm. I think a great example is when you think of a grandma versus a mom. Like you have the mom who's in survival mode, like, the kid, whatever. But then you have the grandma who's on the floor, rolling around, goofing off, being a kid because she's not really in the survival mode of parenthood, but she can go back to that childhood memory and just play with the grandkids. And that's what we can do too.
Yeah. So if somebody's listening and they're like, I lost my color. I don't know what my favorite color is. Literally. I don't know what I really enjoy. All I know is what I've been told by these toxic people in my life. What is one message you would give to them?
First of all, don't shame yourself for it. I remember when I was sitting on your couch and I was looking at those questions and I thought, am I the only one here who doesn't know these answers? And I didn't say anything at that time, I don't think anyway. Just because I was embarrassed. You're not abnormal if you don't know those answers. If you don't know your color, it's not your fault, but it is exciting to think we now get to figure it all out. And nobody has to tell you what you feel anymore. You get to decide.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, I'm going to end with an I declare. I think it's down here. We have some new guests coming, you guys, in the next year. Our goal is to have a few guests each month. So we are now reaching out and asking for guests. If you are a survivor and you're interested in sharing your story, please get with us. We'd love to share a bit about your healing journey. And then we also are booking Rachel on podcast as well. So if you know of any other like-minded podcast that would benefit from hearing Rachel's story, then certainly get with us too, because we'd love to get her booked on more opportunities just to continue to share. All right, I am going to, here we go. This is a good one for today. I declare I choose faith over fear. I meditate on what's positive and what is good about my situation. I use my energy not to worry, but to believe. Fear has no part in my life. I do not dwell on negative, discouraging thoughts. My mind is set on what God says about me. I know his plan for me is for success, victory, and abundance. This is my declaration, and this is my declaration for you. Have an awesome day, my friends, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.